I love this pluralist approach to faith
Yes.
rather than just singular.
It's just allowing yourself to ask the questions. It's not being afraid. It's not being afraid to ask, which I think many of us are fearful of. God is not too big for your questions. We have always been people who have just allowed it all to be true. So being so staunch and like, I have to be so strict in my faith, that is not who we are. People have always done things in tandem. People do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, especially Black people.
Yes.
There's a room to do the other little things that you see or have the other little beliefs. All of it works together. We're human beings.
Yeah.
Like,
No, I
we're
agree.
diverse.
Yes. Religion is one of those things that is often put on us before we actually get a chance to examine it and make a decision for ourselves, right? And even though I grew up in the Christian faith, and this is still the faith that I lean on for my spiritual practice, we will get into that in this conversation. I have been so intentional about examining it from different angles and looking at spirituality in its totality, especially as a West African Black woman. Now, before we go any further, I just want to say that I am almost sure that this is going to be one of those conversations that leaves you with more questions, more contemplations than answers, okay? And we will most likely be offering some sound critique of dominant religions. This is just to allow conversation to be expansive. I promise it is not our intent to offend anyone, so please do your best not to get offended. All right. And finally, listen, you never know. We just might introduce you to a form of spirituality that gets you curious or piques your interest. So to do all of this, it is only fitting that I have the one and only Juju Bae to talk about this. Now listen, if you have wandered in the spiritual corners of the internet, then you probably already know who Juju Bae is, and you don't need me to tell you. But for those who may not know, Juju Bae is an African-American author of the Book of Juju. She's also a spiritual educator and podcaster that navigates her community through the practices of certain African and African-American traditional religions, okay? And what I love about Juju is bold in this work. She is very informative, full in her work and reading her book. She is credible, okay? And she takes this work seriously. This isn't just a trend or a fad for her. And finally, Juju is funny as hell. Listen, she is funny. And if you want to know what I mean by this, go and listen to her podcast episode where she talks about having a spirit husband. Okay. Listen, we are in for a time. A time. And so, as always, you are welcome to this episode of But What Do I Know? A space for honest conversations, lived experiences, and growth in real time. I'm Chidinma, and I am so happy that your curiosity led you right here. All right. So, Juju Bae, I just want to say I am elated. I'm going to use that word. I used to listen to your podcast and I didn't know you had a book out. And then one of my good friends, Estelle is the ultimate connector. She was in Senegal and you were in Senegal. And I had just come back from Lagos, Nigeria. And it was so funny because I was messaging you while Estelle was in Senegal, sitting in my apartment in Lagos. You were like, yeah, I'm in Senegal. And I was like, oh, no, we're all in West Africa.
Right.
And then, we connected through that. And then I realized I know who Juju Bae is. I've listened to her podcast. I didn't know she had a book. I've watched a couple of your interviews. I went on your Instagram page and I was like, oh, no, I know her. So for you to then meet my girl in Senegal that then connected us, wow.
Full circle.
Yeah. So I
Full
am
circle.
so excited that you are on the
Me
podcast.
too.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, your spirit is so just vibrant and up.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm really
thank you,
loving
I
it.
appreciate thank you, I appreciate that, people say that to my mom all the time, so I think I really take after her. She's such a light-hearted, loving person. I'm like, "I just hope to be like her." So
Yeah.
thank you.
No, I really feel it. And it definitely like sets a good tone for the conversation. So I'm super
Good.
excited to get into it. And before I even ask you any question, I just want to say congrats on the book, Book of Juju. I know you
Thank
wrote it about a
you.
year and a half, 2 years
Yeah,
ago.
about 2 years
Yep.
ago, 2.5 years, actually.
Wow. Yeah. And I read it. It is on my shelf here in the studio. And I really
Yay.
like it. Like, it was definitely a guide. That's what I love about it. You didn't just throw a bunch of spiritual words at us and not explain. You didn't just try to do that thing where people that practice African religions, there's a bit of like elitism with it
It
sometimes,
is. It is.
you know? So
Say it. It
okay, I'm
is.
just gonna say it. But you explained, you walked us through some things, you had reflective questions for us. So I
Mhm.
enjoyed it. Like, it almost is a bit of a journal, like a spiritual journal in a way, because you
Yeah.
can come back to it. And I'm gonna go back to some of the questions you asked and
Mhm.
reflect on some of them even more. So thank you
Mhm.
for the book. Thank you for that offering.
Of
So happy to
course.
have it. And yeah.
I'm happy it's out in the world. It has had a reception that I couldn't have even dreamed of,
Yeah.
honestly. It has been so wonderful. I never thought that I would even have a book, at
Mm.
least not at this age. So the fact that I have it all and it's received well, I'm so blessed. So I
No.
appreciate you.
That's amazing. Thank you. I remember I was, sort of prepping for our conversation and I typed in Book of
Mhm.
Juju, Juju Bae on YouTube and all the girls they're doing reviews. I was like, "Oh
Yes.
shit." Yeah. Ooh, no.
Can't believe it,
Yeah.
honestly. I'm like, "Y'all read my book? Wow, that's
Girl. And
crazy."
they're really into it. I was like, "No, this is
Yes.
great." That's how you know you have really built something beyond yourself, Is like
Yeah,
when people
yeah.
are like engaging with your material on that level. So congrats.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so let's start off this way. I want to get into a little bit of your upbringing because in the book you talk about how your family, you grew up Christian like
Mhm,
a lot of us
mhm,
black people do.
mhm.
It's
We
either
sure do.
Christian or Islam. Yeah,
Muslim.
Muslim.
Mhm.
And so you grew up Christian, but you talk about how your family, especially your mom, had this openness about her, right? So I want to know what that openness looked like. Like, what is it? What do you mean when you say, she had this openness about her?
So I was raised Christian, specifically Catholic is the tradition that I was mostly around. I went to Catholic school from kindergarten all the way until high school. So even though I kind of left the Catholic faith and became Baptist around middle school, high school, I still was always engaging in Catholicism. And so my mom, she was Catholic, but she was more of a chill Catholic. We would go to church sometimes, but it wasn't an all the time thing. But she would often just be very I wouldn't say she was woo-woo, but I remember one time I was maybe 9 and she and my stepfather invited a numerologist to the house,
Ooh.
and we gave him our birthday and our numbers, and he kind of read our numerology charts, like, based on the days that we were born, the months that we were born. Apparently it says a lot about who you are. So
Mhm.
she did things like that. She would throw parties, dream parties where she would invite this person who's a dream interpreter and one of her friends who she worked with. She would invite all her friends, she would feed them. My mom loved to throw parties, but she would do dream parties and people would tell their dreams. And this interpreter would interpret people's dreams for them. And so I kind of grew up in this. Yes, it was Christian, but my mom was just very open to what existed and what was out there and building community with people, bringing people over the house, feeding people, but also like doing kind of spiritual work, feeding people's souls through like the numerology stuff or through the dream interpretation stuff. So I think that that was like growing up in that, I always had room and space, at least with her, to ask questions and to explore what it meant to be a spiritual person and even a Christian or just know that there was more than what we were always presented. And that's why I appreciated her. She also just let me be. She was very unique. She let me be unique. I would dye my hair. I would, do all these things and she was just like, "Yeah, go.
Yeah. Do the
You're you.
things.
Do it."
Yeah, that's amazing. And
Yeah, it
you
is.
sort of spoke to it a little bit, but do you think that that openness is what gave you that space to be like, "You know what? I'm gonna explore a couple other things."
Absolutely, and, I never really thought about it until I was older. I didn't think that I was growing up in things that were different than other people's upbringing in that way because I was just so used to having a mother who was so supportive and open and like kind of vibesy about certain things. She's a Libra. She's just such a little Libra. And so yeah, it did allow me that, but there was also all these other things that are happening too, just me being someone who has always questioned, "Why is this like this? Why don't this align like this? What's going on here?" And I was never afraid to allow myself to ask those questions. And so, yes, with my mother, but also being partly raised by grandmothers as well. I grew up around a lot of elders who were very spiritual, who were prayer warriors,
Mm.
who talked to God directly, who said that they would speak, God spoke to them back. So this idea of even being able to communicate to something else was just it was a concoction made by all of my family members in different ways that allowed me to step into being a hoodoo woman, a conjure woman, and a Oshun priest, and a Petebi, and all these titles and different names that I have now. My family completely poured into that, even though all of them would identify as Christian,
Mhm.
to this day.
No, I love that, and I think that whether they knew it or not, they really just gave you the room to
Mhm.
blossom into who you are now. And one sort of, I guess, like, aspect of that openness about you showed even in the book when you were quoting Jeremiah 29, verse 11, and, it's the verse that talks about, "For the plans I have for you, says the Lord, they're of good, not disaster." And when I heard that, I was like, "Oh, I love that verse." And I love this plurist approach to faith
Yes.
rather than just singular. Like, because
Mhm.
without talking to you, I thought, you know what, maybe she will be very anti Abrahamic religions and very
Mm, mhm.
anti, like, we're not looking there. And of course, we have our criticisms of those faiths, and we'll get to that,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
But I love being able to engage with the parts of them that are good. And you took that, put it in
Yep.
your book with the ancestral work, with the other work
Mhm.
that you were doing. I was like, that is to me a good example of the fruitfulness of that openness because you only get that
Yeah.
when your family allows you to have those different
Exploring.
views. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You
And, there were instances where they didn't allow me to maybe, some questions were okay and some weren't. Some topics were okay to discuss, but some you didn't touch. Some were very taboo. If we're talking about body autonomy and sexuality, like that's where we get a little just a little tricky when it comes to them. So yeah, I did have that room. And I also did reject some things that I was brought up in, especially as it related to me being in Catholic school and a lot of the stories that I was told while in school that I'm still working through today that I found to be extremely problematic, even from a middle school, high school, perspective.
Yeah. So, we have this openness in the background from your
Mhm.
family, right? So then what encourages you to go deeper into these practices? How did you stumble upon, like especially African religion?
So I would say I found hoodoo specifically sort of quote unquote first. And why I say that is because I was raised by people that I would consider hoodoo women and men. Now, hoodoo is a specifically African American spiritual tradition. It is something that descended from enslaved Africans, those who were kidnapped from primarily West and Central Africa, brought to the United States. And so obviously we know that these people had ideas, they had belief systems, they had medicinal practices, they had ways of living, being in community, etc. Those things didn't necessarily all get wiped away during what we know as chattel slavery, some of the
Yeah.
most atrocious things that have ever happened to human beings ever. The ways that they continue to be in community, the ways that they continue to pray, the ways that they continue to heal one another, each other, the ways that they understood the power of the herb, the roots, the plants, plant medicine, that was passed down to me. And
Hmm.
so that has been named as hoodoo. More or less, that's something that people use now, but people were called root workers, they were called doctors, they were called Negro mammies, they were called granny midwives when slavery ended. And so I come from a line of granny midwives and Negro mammies, and conjure men who went to the forest and grabbed all the herbs, and people came to his house. His name is Eddie Dingle. He did this in Manning, South Carolina. I come from a woman who caught babies in Matthews County, Virginia,
Hmm.
named Mary Elizabeth Hearn, and she was a medicine woman. White people, black people, everybody went to Merliza. White doctors sent people to my grandma Merliza. So I have this long lineage of spiritualist. I come from a line of so many preachers. Oh my gosh, so many people were preachers. So many people were seers. So many people talked to spirit. All these people did that under the Christian tenets, but they still did things that are not necessarily biblical. But there again, that's the hoodoo of it all.
Hmm.
And so that is how I found my work. I kind of started to identify and ask questions about, oh, why did grandma say that we have to do these things? That's not the Bible. Why do we have to carry money in the pocket? All these little, what people call superstitions. I grew up with that. And then on top of that, as it relates to more of African traditional practice, it was when I saw Lemonade, by Beyonce. And people were talking about Oshun, Oshun, Beyonce is portraying Oshun. This is demonic. Or people loved it. Some people were like, this is demonic. Other people were like, we love it. And I was just I loved Lemonade, first of all, just as a artistic project. But two, I was like, and who is Oshun? Like, I feel connected to this deity, to this woman, to this mother, to this Iya. And so I started to do my research about who she was, and I was like, just like everybody else now, I think Oshun is calling me like, I think I'm a daughter of Oshun, like, I think I'm her. So I took myself to a Babalawo. I found a practitioner. I got a session. I paid for my reading. I said, what's going on with me and what's up with Oshun? He was like, you're a child of Oshun. And I was like, I knew it. And then that was a 7-year process of me being initiated into Oshun, the Oshun Alawoye lineage of Ibadan.
Wow. Now, first of all, sorry, you're becoming a Yoruba babe because,
I
like,
really am.
my girl said Oshu, Babalawo, Aloye. I said, wow. Okay.
Listen, I'm telling you, I was home when I went. I was
No,
home.
I said this so you know she has spent time in the southwest region of Nigeria. Okay.
Mhm. Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, getting it.
Uh-huh. Yeah, getting it.
No, I love that. Like, and one thing I really love about your work is, especially with people that are doing this work, I want to make sure that you're credible. If I'm going to bring someone on my
Yes.
platform, I want to make sure you're credible. I want to make sure you care about this. And it's not just a fad for you. And I really felt that even I mean, the fact that you host workshops back home, the fact that you spent a lot of time and you don't put forth, oh, come get a reading. Like, I'm a charge for this. Oh, like the money part is there because I believe that this people who are practitioners of this work deserve to be paid. Like, we need to be able to get paid to sustain this work, right?
Period.
But I really just love the care that you carry this practice with.
Mm.
I think that it like matters a lot to me, especially as someone in the diaspora who is removed
Yeah.
from it. And oftentimes people be bastardizing these practices. They don't know what they're talking about. And yeah, they don't know the half of it. And it
They
becomes a
don't.
style and aesthetic.
It is. It's really
So
hot right now.
yeah.
It's really popular right now.
Yeah.
I think it's a fascinating time. I think it can be exciting for practitioners, but I also think that means that ethical practitioners do need to be at the forefront of the conversations and ensuring that people are not signing up to be scammed or signing up to treat this as if it is a fad, because once you initiate, it does change you. Like, it changes, it shifts things. You have to be prepared for that. And so I get why sometimes people are a little bit fearful or talk about it in that way, because, like, yeah, it is real. So, like, you do have to be careful because it is real. The Orisha, like, it's all real. So you have to know what you're doing, and you have to be surrounded by people that are actually there to support you and guide you in an ethical way.
Yeah. So as you started kind of like digging into these different traditions and practices, both hoodoo and then the other diasporic ones, what are some of the things that you felt you were getting or feeling or experiencing that you weren't before from Christianity?
Yeah. So early on in my hoodoo journey, I started reading all these different books. Because again, I descend from these conjure people, but they didn't talk about it, one. And two, I learned a lot of this information about me descending from these folks after I told people I was a conjurer. So it wasn't like they were saying it first. I said it. And they were like, oh, yeah, well, so was so was your grandma. So was your. And I'm like, oh, no one does. No one told me y'all was talking and making herbal. Okay. So I would say when I was reading a lot of information, all I kept seeing was like ancestors speak through pennies, like pennies, pennies,
Mm,
pennies. And I was like, okay. So, there's all these information about building altars and setting up a space. And so I did that in my home when I lived in Chicago at the time. And I didn't know what I was doing. I just saw an altar on YouTube and I built the altar from what I saw. And I just was like, hey, ancestors, I don't know exactly what I'm doing, but I was told I need to do this to connect with you all. And I'm ready to learn about my people and my bloodline. I was sitting on top of a pillow and I stood up from the pillow and like 9 pennies just fell. Like they just fell onto the ground when I stood up. And I just started crying because I was like, this was the confirmation that I needed. All I knew was pennies. And for me to just stand up and have pennies just, like, kind of fall, I don't know where I really don't know where they came from. It could have been on the bottom of the pillow, I have no idea. But to see all these pennies fall, I said, "Okay, I've found my place." And so I think I was able to make sense of who I was. I was able to finally have pride in who I came from. I was able to give names to people that I didn't have names for. I was able to feel a sense of resilience. I always felt that in who I descend from. But since being able to really honor and venerate my ancestors, especially people who were enslaved, and the sacrifices that they made for me to be able to do this work. In my brain, there's nothing else would really make sense for me. Like the people that I want to venerate are my people. And I never thought that I was able to do that in Christianity. I didn't feel like there was room to value what it meant to be a Black person, what it meant to be a person of the African diaspora, what it meant to come from Southern people. And so I found such a deep sense of knowing and pride that, like, I'm exactly where I need to be, and I came from exactly who I'm supposed to come from, and I'm very proud of them and their stories. I also just wanna add, because it's really important for me, I live in the United States. So I live in a culture that is not only rooted in colonialism, but understands ancestral veneration, but it's of a whole bunch of dead white men. We're
mm,
constantly engaging with the names and the museums and the dollars and all of that that have a bunch of dead white men on them, many of who were also colonizers and slave owners. And so what might it mean for me to give credence and respect to the people that I descend from in the same way that I non-consensually have to consent to all these things around me that are supposed to be important to me, of the ancestors of America. I don't care. What about me? What about my people? I need to give them that spiritual energy and armor that they give they folks,
mm.
if not more.
Okay. No, when you said, you're in the States, I'm in Canada,
Yeah.
deep colonial
Mhm.
roots, like incredible colonial history when we just talk about the
Yes.
indigenous people of this
Yep.
continent to the brain drain of immigrant. Like, girl, we can,
Mhm.
and so I hear you when you say,
Mhm.
what about you? What about our people?
Right.
And I'm going to go back to something you mentioned. You said you weren't able to sort of express that pride in yourself, in your people, and where you come from with
Mhm.
Christianity. And I feel like I echo that so much because sometimes I feel like there's a part of me that is missing that connection because I am not home.
Mm.
Right. And
Right.
so I'm from the southeast region of Nigeria, Igbo land, and I'm Igbo. And so it's like I'm not there. So I feel a sense of like I'm
Of
missing that
course.
connection with the ancestors, right? And then
Yeah.
I have this faith that I've been introduced to, and I'm grateful for that because there are a lot of disciplines that I've gotten from Christianity, but at the same time,
Mhm.
there's a lot of shit that I don't agree with. I
Right.
have sat in sermons and services, and they get to
Mhm.
talking about whether it's homosexuality, or they get to praying for Israel a little too hard, or they
Ooh.
get to doing saying some things that I'm just like, "Why would you say
Whoa.
that?"
Whoa,
Why would you say
right. How did
that?
we get here?
Yeah,
Okay.
like, so
Yep.
the constant conflict that you have to do as a Black person, because it's like, okay,
Mhm.
well, this is what I know.
Yeah.
This is what's familiar to me. Okay, let me do the best with this. It's not perfect, but let me try.
Right.
And then that's why I'm so kind of inspired by your plurist approach because I have been looking into for Igbo it's Odinani or Odinala. Like
Mhm.
I've been looking into it and the fact that like my name is Chidinma, it means God is good. And a lot of people think it's God in like the post-colonial context, but it's
Yes.
pre. It's
Yep.
pre. Like Chi is a
Yep.
deity that is
Yes,
your
it
spirit
yes.
guide. And so when people
Yep.
are even talking about, oh, get in touch with your chi, and I'm like, oh, we have that. Like my
Right.
culture, deadass has a chi
Yes.
that you got to talk to and
Yep.
check in with your chi. And Chuku is like
Yep.
the supreme
Yep.
god. And we have,
Mhm.
Yoruba, they have
Odi is the personal sort of yeah,
exactly,
Olodumare is yes, the big
Olodumare,
god.
exactly. And
Mhm.
even when it comes to like, if you're around like a Nigerian or an African and we're angry at someone, they'll say like, I think the god of like that strikes of like anger and like retribution, I think is it Ogun?
Ogun,
Yes,
mhm.
Ogun for Yoruba, and for us it's Amadioha. So we're always like Amadioha will strike you down. Ogun,
Mhm.
all of them.
Mhm.
So whenever you
Ogun Shango. Mhm.
Shango, that yes, Shango, Amadioha, Ogun, they will strike you
Uh-huh.
down.
Strike yep.
Yeah, so I'm always like, even just saying things like that, and like you mentioned, even going back to Lemonade, I was so happy when she did that. Like I knew that it wasn't necessarily just for continental Africans; it was for diasporic Black
Yes.
people throughout
It
the
was for the
world.
diaspora.
Yeah.
Mhm.
To know
It was for
like
the
this is
diaspora.
where you're from. Like it was literally called The Gift.
Right.
So Lemonade and then the black was it Black is King?
Black is
Black
king.
is
Mhm.
King together. Yes, yes, yes. So
Yep.
that era where she was really just
She was putting it
showcasing,
out there.
oh yes. Yeah, yeah,
We were
yeah,
like,
yeah.
"Okay, B, we see you. We see what you're doing."
Yes,
And I appreciated it a lot. I appreciate sometimes it can get tricky with pop culture and how they are showing spirituality, especially something as like old and ancient and revered, as Ifa or the Orisha. But I think that Beyonce did a great job and it's part of why I'm able to be here. So Oshun used her, to get my attention and it worked. So
yeah.
shout out to B.
Yeah, honestly, and like you said, yeah, I guess tricky with pop culture, but I think that if you are able to just weave critically through what is
Yes.
authentic and what is not, then you can
Yes.
kind of pick out what is for you. But
Right.
yeah, no, I absolutely echo that, girl. Sometimes I'm like, I know I don't want to say there's a right or wrong religion, but sometimes I am like, okay, which one is right for me? And so I am definitely
Mhm.
digging more into like Igbo cosmetology and just the
Okay.
language and like I
I
speak
love
Igbo, but I want to
this.
write more. I want to like, just that
Yeah.
pride. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right. You don't really get that from something that is just not inherently yours. Like as
For
much as,
you.
it just isn't. So I
Sorry.
yeah,
Sorry, guys.
just is what it
No
is.
shade, like, it is what it
It is what
is.
it is. So for you and the people that you've been able to connect with through your work, do you kind of get the same feeling for them? Like, is it also about people feeling like, I want to connect with a culture that I may have been disconnected from? Like, is it that brings people to a lot of this practices?
I think so, and
Yeah.
especially I noticed I had such an uptick in my listenership and people looking for these traditions, particularly during COVID. I mean, of course, people were home, they were listening more. I think people had an opportunity to just tap into something. We weren't going to work in the same way, so things kind of paused, and so I had a lot of folks be really interested, and I've just seen it go up and up and up since 2020. So, yeah, I think people, especially Black people, are like, "What else is out there?" Who are we? What have I been told that's a lie? How do I decolonize my faith practice? I think that that is just becoming more and more important for people. And, studies are showing that the church memberships are going down significantly. They're going down significantly. And so that means that I don't think that means that people don't want community. I don't think that means people don't want God. I think people still want those, but they're finding that they're not able to connect in the ways that they thought that they could in the church setting. So what else is out there? And my role in this is just to show one option of what else is out there that does accept, but also where you can see God as you. Like God can look like you. God doesn't have to be a white man in heaven with blue eyes. That's not what God looks like here.
Yeah, yeah. And when you've said, a lot of people are seeking like what else is out there
Mhm.
and all of that. I'm gonna tell a quick story and then I'll come back. It's like that made me think of a time. So me and my sister attended this class called apologetics. I don't know if you ever attended that, doing your Christian walk. So a couple of years ago, we attended this thing called apologetics, and it's a program where they essentially teach you how to know how to talk to other people about Christianity. Know
Hmm.
so that if people have questions, you can talk to them about it. And essentially, like,
Mhm.
without saying it, the aim is that you are able to bring people into the faith. Okay. And you
Okay.
can answer questions, you can kind of convert them, you can debate. When
Okay.
I tell you, my sister and I walked out of that. We went to the car. We said, "Listen, this has nothing to do with me. God, I love you, but this started before I was put on this earth and will continue after me. This is not my that.
My ministry.
That's just not what I'm here for.
Right.
I want to lean on this text for wisdom,
Yep.
for certain aspects of discipline,
Mhm.
and to help me continue to live the life that I want to lead." That is
Yes.
what I lean and I go to faith for. I do not go to faith on some, let me try and convert people and lead them. That's not me.
No.
You're
That's
not gonna get
no.
that from me. I'm so
No.
sorry. No, 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 no. Sorry.
And it's so funny because as a practitioner of E5, like, we don't do that at all. That's kind of something that is a bit taboo to want to try to convert people to believe in the Orisha or to join E5. Like, that's not, you allow people to come to you. If people are interested and they have questions, you answer their questions happily. But we can be in space, and if someone is Christian and someone is Muslim and someone is Buddhist, yay,
Mm.
we love that. Do you? We're not trying to convert. Now, but if you're interested, you can have your questions answered. And I appreciate that about this tradition too, because it's not pushy. I mean, people, not to say that people don't be pushy, but the tenets of it are not pushy. It's
Yeah.
not supposed to be like that. That is not a norm
Yeah.
in the culture.
And even going back to, the pluralist way of looking at spirituality and faith, it's like I think for a long time I sat in the fear of, if I don't do this, I'm not going to heaven. Am I making God angry? Do I need to
Mhm.
convert people? And after a while, I was like I started separating the spiritual aspect of this
Yeah.
from some of the man-made traditions that have been put on, some of the
Yes.
man-made practices, some of the atrocities, some of just the I yeah. Like, so again, everybody practice your faith how you want to practice,
Yeah.
but this is just where I am comfortable
Yeah.
because I think there was something that was so stifling about feeling like if I didn't do things a certain way, I was not going to make
Of
heaven or I wasn't
course.
going to,
Mhm.
be rewarded. And then even the idea of practicing something so that you can be rewarded, that a little reductive.
It is, and I think that same thing is what pulled me out of Christianity. It was like, "Wait, I can't I'm too stressed out about if I'm gonna go to hell, and I'm not trying to really harm anybody. I just," there's just all these little things that you just can't do. You can't think, you're born in sin, you are sin. I'm just like, "This is stressful. I already have anxiety. This is not helping me. Like, this isn't helping my anxiety.
Yeah.
I need a sense of freedom,
Yeah.
but also there's structure, and I appreciate structure, but, like, there can be freedom in the structure, and I didn't feel that.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's like, on one end, it's very institutionalized and the
Mhm.
structure and the
Yeah.
decades and decades of all the rigidity that's been built into it. But at the same time, like when you say a prayer and you ask God for something or you thank
Mhm.
God for the year that you've had or the time, and
Mhm.
there is such like freedom and calm that comes from releasing that.
It
And I think that
does.
that's why faith is so important because
Yep.
we live in such a fucked up world. Like there has to be something beyond this. There has to be a
Please.
greater force,
Has to.
Like, there just has to be, but I just
Yeah.
think that if the world is already as difficult, as hard to navigate, as complicated as it is, I would like my faith to be something that is additive and complementary to
Yes.
that and just guides me along the way. That's where I'm looking to faith for right now, you
That's
know?
what it's for.
Yeah.
You've been confused. That's literally why it existed.
So that's where I'm at with it. But yeah. So I want you to dispel some of the myths for the girlies because even
Wow.
before I read your book, and I'm African, I would mix them up. I knew hoodoo was from the South. Is hoodoo from
Mhm.
Louisiana specifically?
No,
Okay.
it's from all
All
over
over? Okay.
wherever enslaved Africans were dispersed, which
Okay.
was primarily the South, but voodoo would specifically kinda be the more Louisiana and they're
Okay.
cousins. They're very similar, voodoo and hoodoo.
Okay. Got it. Got it. Okay. So voodoo, Louisiana, hoodoo's sort of all over. And then, of course, we have Ifa, which is specifically from Yoruba, unless there are other tribes. I only know it as a Yoruba practice and tradition.
I do too, but there is some connection like, there's some overlap for sure, like, in Benin
Yes,
and
absolutely. But that's because I
so
think that there might be some Yoruba people in Benin and other
Yoruba people in
tribes.
Benin
There's a lot
and
of overlap because we
there's a
moved.
we moved
We
right,
moved before
we are
they
people
forced
that
us to be a
moved.
border.
And the borders were colonial projects too, so people weren't, Nigerian yeah, until
Exactly. Okay?
like just yesterday. And it's
Exactly.
so, it's malleable. But yeah, I do know it mostly is Yoruba, but I do think it expands a little bit further than them now. But don't quote me.
Of course, of course, of course. We want, and I know like other pockets of the diaspora, like I know Brazil practices heavily
Yes,
because there's a big presence of Yoruba people there. Even
Cuba,
Cuba, yes, Cuba practices it heavily.
Brazil.
Yeah, even Santeria sort
Yes,
of reminds
Santeria.
me of that too. I know they're not the same, but they remind me of
It's
each
a
other too.
diasporic tradition
Yeah.
of Ifa, so it's a diasporic way to practice, same way with Candomblé.
Right.
Brazil was Yoruba people brought to Brazil, and they kinda mixed and meshed it with Catholicism, and it became Candomblé. But
Ah,
same Orisha, same they maybe have some different names, there's definitely some differences, but at the core, it is the same thing. They got the same grandma, they got the same mama.
got it.
Different
Okay.
daddies.
Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, if you could sort of just explain, like, let's start with Ifa. Like, what are sort of like the
Mhm.
core tenets of Ifa?
Core tenets of Ifa, I would say that there is one creator, Olodumare. There are different facets of that creator that we interact with every day. That is through the Orisha, which are deities, primordial beings, forces of nature as well. And so we interact with Olodumare through the wind, through the river, through the ocean, through the depths of the ocean, through the seen, through the unseen, through the arts. These are all Orisha. Basically, Olodumare is too big, too important that we can interact with Olodumare through these other deities like the Orisha, as well as through people, as well as through priests, as well as through life. That's how we interact with what I'll put in quotes as God, just to make it easier for people. But it's not necessarily big G, OD. We can't attribute the Christian qualities always to, Olodumare, but yeah, it is a process and a way of living. It is a way of life. Like, yes, it is a tradition and a religion, but it is simply how we see the world. It is a cosmological understanding of being in good, right relationship with your destiny. That means following through on what you promised Olodumare at the beginning of time when you were born and that you want to live that out. You want to cause the least amount of harm in the world. You want to do what you came here to do. We all have different destinies. We all have different ways of being. My destiny is different than yours. We both pick different ones. But it is my job to live out mine and not mess you up in living out yours. That's how I would like to talk about Ifa in very simple terms. It's being in right relationship. It's honoring the nature, the primordial beings, which is honoring Oldumare and also honoring our ancestors, honoring who we come from, and honoring ourselves.
Mm,
Like it's that simple. It's just about honor and respect of every living thing.
that's beautiful. Yeah, and that theme is very common throughout a lot of diasporic
Mhm.
traditions.
Yes.
Okay, let's get into conjure, hoodoo, and voodoo. I want to talk about these
Mhm.
three because I know this is where the girlies probably
Yes.
we're
Yes.
we're interchanging the names and we don't really know what they
Yes.
mean. So let's start with conjure.
Yes. Yeah, so conjure is really Conjure is a practice, like, to conjure is a way to summon or to activate something, whether you are activating an herb to do a thing for you, whether I'm activating this bone to do a thing for me, whether I'm trying to activate a spirit. So it is the process of conjuring, of activating something that is around you. They all kinda stem from this idea of animism, which is the belief that everything has a spirit or a soul. So we are taught in the Western world that, only humans and maybe animals have a soul, maybe. But the trees don't have souls, the water has no soul. The water does not have anything, it doesn't mean anything, plants don't mean anything. But a conjurer would know that no, water does mean something. I can pray into water and make something shake. That's because the water heard me, because the water can shift with my movements. What conjure is, it's just the act of conjuring, and anybody can be a conjurer if they understand the ability to activate and work something.
Okay, but it's not necessarily ascribed to one particular practice.
It's not, but a lot of hoodoos will call hoodoo conjure or call it hoodoo conjure.
Got
If that
it.
makes but it can anyone you can practice Wicca and be a conjurer, like, you can conjure if you are conjuring, but hoodoo and conjure are often used synonymously, and they can be. Hoodoo is more specific.
Okay, yeah, let's get into that. So what's the hoodoo
Yes.
practice?
So hoodoo, as I mentioned before, is a practice that descends from enslaved Africans and their descendants. So folks who had ideas, belief systems, medicinal practices that had to reassess how they would work on new soil in the deep south, on new land, under new circumstances in chattel slavery. Hoodoo was sort of born out of that mix of, the African indigeneity and also I am now a slave person. And so what does it mean now to worship? How do I pray? What herbs can I use to heal? What salves can I make with what's around me that are different than before? Maybe my acts of prayers are different because I'm under extreme duress. So
Mm.
there is room for me to do what people call left hand work. That's the negative, that's the bad work. But I might figure out how to pray to poison my slave master. I may poison his livestock. I may say a prayer so that I can rebel against my blah blah blah. That is the practice of hoodoo. So it was born out of duress. So a lot of people who of course were enslaved and their descendants have dealt with a lot of pain and strife and struggle and have had to fight back. So hoodoo is a way that I can use the indigenous knowledge that I have, but also understand that I am a part of a horrible colonial project and I need to have a semblance of control.
Mm.
And so how can I help my situation? How can I help the people around me? It's through hoodoo. And it's still relevant today.
Yeah, and I think it's so powerful, and I sort of laugh when people are like, "Oh my god, leave that stuff alone. That's so demonic. We just gotta like
Mhm.
pray about it." But we pray all the time for God
Yes.
to hurt our enemies. Like I, I certainly have. I've certainly said, God, you know what? Fight for me in this case because that person really hurt me. I've said those prayers. So if you can say that in one faith, you can say that in another spiritual practice. Like
Exactly.
you can definitely want to get
Exactly.
some retribution through your
There's
practice.
retribution
Hello.
all throughout the Bible. I was
Yeah.
just talking about this in my hoodoo
Absolutely.
course.
God was
Like
a
where I'm
very jealous God that fought for his people. What?
yes, and I'm cursing you, your son, your son, your son, your son, all who hate
Entire
me. I can't
lineages were cursed if you did one thing
hello.
wrong. So yeah, I just
Same thing,
yeah.
but people don't like it because, again, it was born out of slavery and the need to address a really serious problem, and it put control back in the hands of people who were not supposed to be in power or have any kind of control.
Mm.
And it was scary. I would think of course, it would be scary to, racists and slave masters, but it can be scary to anybody because it's like, "Oh, you got some power." And we fear power. So, we fear people with power, we fear people who think they have power, all of that. Power is scary. And don't give black people no power. That's even scarier. So I think that is why people are like, "Oh, I don't know about who
Okay, come on.
black people can't have power."
Mm,
But
mm,
we do and we can.
mm-hmm.
And I wish more people activated their hoodoo.
Yeah,
Maybe
that part.
situations would be different.
Girl, maybe we would have better leadership around the world.
Hello?
Mm, yeah. Okay, let's get into the difference between hoodoo and voodoo now.
Yes. So hoodoo and voodoo are also terms that can be used and are used interchangeably. I would say the difference is that voodoo is more specific to the Louisiana region. It is also, yes, there is indigenous African connection there. There's also this aspect of Catholicism that is present throughout
Hmm,
Louisiana, and
didn't know
so
that.
there is a use often of saints
Oh,
and
yes.
God within voodoo, but there's also the other, there we may be venerating a mermaid, but we're also talking to Saint Anthony. Where all of these things are happening at the same time. We also have this influx of Haitian folks who are in Louisiana, so it's amalgamation of Haitian Vodou as well, which also includes Catholicism. So we have the indigenous Africanity of it. We have the US, we have the Catholicism, the French Catholicism, we got Haiti, Haitian Vodou, we have African Vodou. So we have all these things mixed together, and that is what voodoo is. It is a child of the merging of all these traditions and really cultures coming together. But it has a similar role and has taken on a similar role as hoodoo has, which is
Okay.
why they can be and often are used interchangeably.
Mhm.
It kinda can do the same thing.
Got it. Okay. What are some of those misconceptions that people, when they hear about the work that you do or they hear about these practices, they're like, "Oh, girl, does that mean that you can do this? Or does that mean this?" Like, I'm just
Mhm.
so curious because I know you probably hear a lot of shit.
I have in my past. Thankfully, I don't hear a lot of it more recently. I
Oh,
don't know
that's
if people
good.
are
Waking
I
up?
don't know what's waking up or just don't wanna sound ignorant, but I've appreciated it. Well, originally, I think people would often be like, "Oh, do you believe in God?" Yes. I believe in God. It's not godless. It's not I wouldn't even consider myself a polytheist, even though I have many deities that I venerate. There's still aspects of the creator, of the one creator. So I would say that, so that they're polytheistic, that I talk to ghosts
Mm.
and I have, but that I'm constantly just in communication with people's spirits. Like I'm walking down the street and it's like, "Oh, can you see my future? Like, do you see my ancestors?" No, I don't. I don't see that. I'm not working. Now, do I have a gift? Could I activate it? Probably, maybe, but for the most part, I live a very regular, in quotes, regular life, and do regular things. And it's not like I'm constantly like battling the spiritual realm constantly. Like I'm a regular person who has a job of connecting people to their ancestors and has a gift of it so that I can do that. It is not demonic. It is not inherently evil. It can be used for evil, just like Christianity. It can be used for evil, just like Islam can be used for evil, just like
Yep.
Judaism can be used for evil. It can be used for evil, yes. That is
Mhm.
not my purpose, that is not my sole purpose. Being in the tradition, it is a gift, it was passed down, it is not against God. There's no competition between the traditions. It's just a gift, and it's natural, and it's normal, and it is how my ancestors survived.
Yeah.
It's that simple. It's so sad that it's become like this whole like, "Whoa," it's just like, "Oh no, the more." It's really actually not that deep.
Mhm. I also think it's because a lot of people don't see those practices as full-fledged religions or faith
Yes.
practices. They see it as something to run to when you wanna go get your man back or something. You wanna do a spell or
Exactly.
2
That's
over
such
lunch
a good
break, then
point.
you run to
That's
that.
such a
But that's not something that,
Yes.
you have a text that goes, you have the Bible, you have
Right.
the Torah, you have the Quran, like, so I think
Right.
it's hard for people to sort of see it as
See
this is
it.
a
A
practice.
practice.
Yeah.
That's such a good point, and it's also a great point about how people, regardless of their religion, run to the Babalawo, run to the Iya, run to the conjure person, run to the root worker, run to the like my Babalawo in Ogun State, like he always says, my clients who are Christian and mostly actually Muslim, they come at night. They just
Yeah.
come at night.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
come at night and it's not about they come at night like we see on Nollywood and they're trying to curse, the lady down the street. Like it's not just about that. Like they're coming because their daughter is barren. And what do the Orisha say about how my daughter can have her? I want my grandchild to be here. My cousin is dealing with abuse. What can the Babalawo do or support? What prayers can we say to address it? So it's not just about like hexing, your neighbor.
We're trying to get
People
rich
come
quick.
or trying to get rich quick. That can be a part of it, but, like, there is real healing that happens and people know it, they just are too ashamed to say that they engage in it out loud because it's
Mm.
taboo for a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, that's real. And I think that is what and I'm curious to, sort of hear if you have any other thoughts around like is I think that's a big part of what stops a lot of people from
Of
exploring
course.
these things. I think it's the fear of the unknown. We don't know enough about it. Like we're just not
Mhm.
exposed to it, right? It's almost like it's its own like underground
Yeah, it
thing and those
is.
who know. So we
Mhm.
just don't have exposure to it. I think a lot of people just feel like, what, I'm gonna just do what I have or even if I'm not interested,
Sure.
then I'm just not gonna practice anything at all.
Yeah.
So I think it is really nice to see that the sort of knowledge on these practices are increasing.
Like you said, people don't know a lot, but the things that people do know are just so negative. Like they just know the negative parts. They know my cousin did, my aunt did this, my so and so died because this person had obia. Like
Yeah,
it's just all
obia,
these
yes.
like and it's like, okay, but ain't nobody ever got healed. Where are the stories about the people who have gotten healed because they exist?
Mm,
But people sensationalize and, of course, are fearful of the bad. That I think that's just a natural I guess that's a human thing that's not specific to spiritual traditions. I think everything that's bad the news is bad, spirituality is bad, like, everything's just about the bad. So I'm just trying to offer like, "Hey, yeah, bad things have been done, but also people are, like, able to have kids who couldn't have kids by going to Ifa.
yeah. Mhm.
That's good. People are able to get out of abusive relationships.
Mm.
'Cause of leave it giving an offering to Ogun, okay? Safely. Yes, there's bad. There's all bad, but we have to acknowledge there's a reason that these traditions have been demonized. And once we acknowledge the real reason, colonialism, white supremacy, wanting us to lose who we were and who we are and our power and our sense of self, we will be able to just at least no one's saying you have to practice. Again, I am not a convert. I'm not trying to make people be anything, but to deny your ancestral lineage is a deep disservice to yourself, to your people, to your spiritual health, to your physical health. Like it is just a disservice. And we have been through so many disservices, like, it's time to feel some pride
Mm.
and educate ourselves on the truth about who we are and where we come from, and that is not a bad people. I refuse to believe that that's a bad people.
Yeah. No, for real. So, I mean, you that was perfect because my next question is like the perfect segue from what you just said. It's this, and it's something that I know, I wrestle with a little bit. I know friends who are thinking about it. Like,
Mhm.
how do we question, the faith that we're practicing or the faith, the religion, spirituality without it being this outright like rejection of it completely?
Mhm. It's just allowing yourself to ask the questions. It's not being afraid to ask, which I think many of us are fearful of. It's been the fear of going to hell, it's been the fear of being rejected, it's the fear and they're valid fears because people do get rejected, when they question their faith. But one of my friends, Lavon Briggs, she says often, author of Sensual Faith, she says, God is not too big for your questions.
Absolutely.
Like, it's just that simple. If you are a believer in something, whatever you believe in, the God or whoever, should not be too big for you to be like, "That don't make sense. I don't know about this. What about this?"
Mhm.
That's part 1. Part 2 is people have always done things in tandem. People do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, especially Black people.
Yes.
Like, yeah, Christian, sure. Now you have people who are devout, who are very, only by the Bible, whatever. But there's always this little, like, lore or this little superstition or this little thing that's not biblical that you have to do. You have to eat it like this. We have to pray like this. We have to pour water over the tires before we have a long travel
Mm.
in Senegal. That's not a Islamic practice. Why? Why you gotta put water on the tire for a long drive? Oh, it's for blessing. Water is blessing. Oh, okay. There's always like this little sprinkle of something, and so we have always been people who have just allowed it all to be true. So being so staunch and like I have to be so strict in my faith, that is not who we are.
Mhm.
So I think you can have a faith, you can believe in it, you can respect it, but know that like there's a room to do the other little things that you see or have the other little beliefs. All of it works together. We're human beings.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm. No, I
we're
agree.
diverse.
Yes. Yes, and then what I don't like is, and again, if you're devout, but then the
Sure.
framing of, you can't serve two masters, so you can't do this and do that.
Right.
And I'm here to
Since
say,
when?
listen, I'm gonna take a little bit from here and take a little
Yep.
bit from there. And that's where I'm at.
And people do it all the time,
Yeah.
but you can't question it too much, and specifically, like, a African American belief of, like, eating black eyed peas on New Year's, Christians do that, and it's like, "Why?" "Oh, that's for good luck." Good luck? What you need luck for if you got Jesus?
Right.
Why we eating black eyed peas for good luck? Because that's what you do. Oh, okay. Again, there's always that's the hoodoo, though. That's hoodoo stuff and just the things that we think are just normal things that you just do, quote unquote.
Mhm.
No, they come from a place. And so it's not about serving two masters. It's just being a human being. And
Yeah.
I think God gets it. Humans don't get it. God is like, child, y'all,
Like we might actually be overcomplicating it. Like.
we absolutely
Yeah.
are.
Like, I think for me, if you have that reverence for God, for
Mhm.
the creator,
Mhm.
and you can just sit and look at the world and marvel at all that has
Yes.
been created, that to me is like, okay. And then whatever practice brings you to that reverence, to that
Yep.
honoring,
Yep.
you know, like that
Go
is,
forth.
yeah. Especially, and I think part of the reason why Black people, like you said, a lot of the times we do things in tandem or we practice multiple things is
Mhm.
because it has been so confusing for us all our lives. Like you have this one
Yes.
thing that you were given, through colonization, and then you have
Mhm.
another one that you're reading about in books and that your grandma's telling you, or like my
Mhm.
parents will tell me, oh yeah, in Igbo, we have this and we have da 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 and this and this.
Mhm.
And you get curious and you want to also, learn about it and practice it because
Yeah.
it is also part of who you are.
Yes.
So I like, yeah, that's just been something that I wrestle with. It's like I don't know. I don't want to feel like I have to choose. I want to be able to understand the disciplines of one,
Don't have
but
to.
still enjoy, even if it's just a theory of
Yeah,
Igbo
right.
religion, like of Odinani. Like I still want to be able to understand it and try it,
Yeah.
you know?
It's fascinating. It's
Yeah,
beautiful. It's a way to see the world. It doesn't necessarily have to be that you go on to, pray to Chuku unless you want to, but like it is a way to understand. Like we know so much about Greek mythology, at least here. We
exactly.
learn that. Why we can't learn ours? We have
Exactly.
myth work too.
Exactly. They're literally the same thing. And you learn about Zeus and
Zeus and
Perseus and or
Hercules.
exactly. But can't learn about, our
Your
own.
chi.
Exactly. Exactly. Whew. Well, this has been so great. And I want to sort of just end off our conversation for listeners who are listening and are a little bit curious, they're like
Mhm.
Juju, Chid, where can I start if I even just want to read about this or I want to
Mhm.
understand a little bit more? What would you say is that starting point for them?
I would say selfish plug, listen to a little Juju podcast. No,
Yes. I was gonna say your
you
book even, the
but
Book of
yes, I was
Juju.
gonna say, yes, the Book of Juju for sure. I think it's a good overview. Of course, I'm not talking about every diasporan tradition, every African tradition, because there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. But just if you wanna start in looking inward and exploring, start with your ancestors, see what they have to offer you. And so in my book, I talk a lot about how we may connect with our ancestors, how we already do connect with our ancestors and maybe don't consider that as connection. And allow yourself to read, as I say in my book, with your ancestral eye. If certain things point out to you or you feel connected to something like, ooh, that spiritual bath looks good, or ooh, this thing about the altar, ooh, maybe I need to go travel doing this thing. Just let your intuition guide you as you read the book and the things that stand out to you, sit with that and allow yourself to ask the questions because God is big enough for your questions.
Mhm. Do you have, and I'll put them in the episode description, but do you have specific resources? Like I know IFA is popular, that's the one that you're
Hmm.
knowledgeable about, and it is one that a lot of people are gravitating towards. So, do you
Yes.
have resources for IFA? Like, is there a specific teacher online aside from yourself that you're like, you could go?
I mean, I have a wonderful elay that I'm a part of, Ijoifa Masa in Baltimore.
Ooh,
So I do recommend my elay. I think that's a wonderful learning space. But of course, everybody's not going to vibe with everybody has to
exactly.
go where they feel comfortable. So I can't say that that's generally like where everyone needs to reach out to. But, I would love to send you my Babalao's information if you,
Of
decide to
course.
put in the show notes or something that
Yeah,
works. Otherwise, online, I don't know. Like, I know a lot of wonderful practitioners, but it can get
it
tricky in trying to
does.
recommend people. I would just say be careful of folks who slide up in your DMs and
Mm,
say that the Orisha told them to tell you something. Your Gungun said that they need this and you need to send me $500. Just don't do that. Otherwise, just do your searches. Ask your Ori to guide you.
okay.
And I will share my information, of course,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Okay, and if you can, yeah, just let the people know where they can find you on socials, like, connect with you, listen
Yes.
to the podcast.
Yes. So my show is a Little Juju podcast, streaming everywhere you get your streams. Also trying to get my YouTube views up, so feel free to
Girl, me
watch on
too.
YouTube. Yes, please. I just got monetized. So let's run it up. You can find me at ITSJUJBAE on everything. It's Juju Bae is where I am across all socials, TikTok, Instagram. Everywhere, it's Juju Bae. And my website, jujubae.com, if you want to book a reading, if you're ready to tap in that way, see what your ancestors may have to say, I would love to read you. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you so much. I feel like this
Thank
conversation has
you,
been very
too.
warming. It's very like eye-opening a little bit. Like I said,
Yeah.
I love the pluralist approach that we took. I love the idea of, I'm gonna engage with this and expand on this for my well-being. So I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It was a wonderful conversation. Great questions for me. So thank you.
Thank you for listening to my conversation with Juju Bae. I truly hope that this conversation encourages you to reflect on your beliefs, where they might come from, how they may have evolved, and where you're at now. Listen, go ahead and send this episode to that girlfriend you know would really appreciate hearing this conversation. Maybe she needs to hear a conversation like this right now. Put it in the group chat, talk about it. And if you want to bring those conversations to socials, we are on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at BWDIK Podcast. We would love to know the conversations that you're having around this topic. If you're shy, you don't want to talk to us on socials, you can definitely email us. It's connect@bwdikpodcast.com. And finally, please make sure that you are subscribed on whatever platform it is that you use to listen or watch the podcast. As always, be well and keep living.